Hello, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to join us for this webinar. My name is Mark, and I'll be sharing with you today about RemoteWinBox, Admiral, and how we're helping customers, what's new with our service. So if you're new to RemoteWinBox and wondering what we do, anyone with a MikroTik can simply go to RemoteWinBox.com, create a free account, and click the activation link to begin managing their routers in the cloud in just a few seconds by copying and pasting a simple script. Our dashboard has a user-friendly and intuitive interface with multiple layers of security, including two-factor authentication, randomized credentials, and firewall hardening. For 50 cents per router per month, you can have easy-to-use remote access that works through NAT and LTE and provides real-time health information. And our premium subscription is $2 per router per month and unlocks all of our features, including automated backups for configuration management, disaster recovery, fleet firmware management, bulk configuration updates and troubleshooting tools, and historical statistics. No minimums, no contracts, no long-term commitments. In your first router, it's on us. So we also have an on-premise or dedicated cloud solution that we call Admiral. And Admiral is our MikroTik fleet management solution that has all the same benefits as RemoteWinBox, and it even shares the same code base, but it's dedicated and isolated for your company. And we recently launched a new deployment option. We were listening to our customers and they said, hey, can I run this on my own hypervisor? So we created a BYOH capability so you can bring your own hypervisor. Now you can choose to deploy Admiral in our data center or in your data center. And you can do that either on your hypervisor or with a pre-configured 1U appliance. Admiral is an affordable solution for larger ISPs and MSPs that are looking to add secure automation and orchestration for hundreds or thousands of MikroTiks. It's an annual subscription where the price varies depending on the number of MikroTiks, and the bulk annual pricing is a significant savings over our cloud offering for high volume. And there's one more benefit for Admiral too. So the incredible team at RemoteWinBox also offers custom development and integration. One of the benefits of Admiral is that our team of MikroTik experts and full stack developers can provide customized MikroTik software solutions. And that could be anything from buttons that maybe generate an automatic reporting to IPTV diagnostics or troubleshooting tools for your MikroTik fleet. In other cases, we've assisted with network monitoring solutions or syslog implementation. If you have an idea and you'd like a quote, get in touch with our sales team by emailing sales@remotewinbox.com. So now we'll get to the meat of what we've been up to here. And we've been really busy improving our software. And also last month, our team was in New Orleans for the WISP America show, which was fantastic. So we've got a lot of updates today. I will highlight these as we take a look through the RemoteWinBox dashboard, but first I want to share with you what's new and just talk about it a little bit. So first off, a huge update for premium subscribers with the per device statistics. And when I show that feature, we'll talk about one of our users who recently had a great support call related to it. Another massive update is the new router listing page, which was needed because last year during the new year, our software started to slow down for those users that had hundreds or thousands of routers. But our software geniuses were able to enhance the dashboard with a new design, and that loads the page in about a second, regardless of whether you have one device or 10,000. One of our customers said, it's crazy fast. Next up is the game-changing stacked bandwidth, which allows you to see the breakdown of which devices are the high bandwidth devices in the home. Again, we'll take a look and show these in just a minute. We've also added notifications and alerts so that you can get emails when important routers go online and offline, and when important events happen on the dashboard. Behind the scenes, we've also been adding capacity and expanding our resources in our data center as we continue to grow in popularity. And finally, we talked about this during the Admiral a couple of slides ago. We now support BYOH, bring your own hypervisor, to leverage your existing VM infrastructure as a deployment option for the Admiral service. So I'm going to take a break here to switch screens and we'll show the dashboard. So I can find my screen share. Here we go. So this is the RemoteWinBox dashboard. I'm just going to go ahead and log in here with the right account, and here we go. So at the heads up view here, we've got a bit of a knock dashboard that shows you your overall implementation and just what is the health of my overall implementation. Are there routers online, offline, permissions problems? These are things that we can get into, and if you're interested, we can go into a one-on-one, but today I'm really gonna go over everything pretty quickly, and we'll go into what's new at depth. But some of the things that are a little older, we can talk about it. If you'd like to have a chat with me, you can sign up. We'll send a follow-up email. But so this screen is really meant to give us an idea of what's the overall health of the network. You can see there's a map view that shows us online, offline. If we can start zooming in and see where routers are online and offline, we're pretty green over here, so we can start zooming in and see where those routers are at. And then we've got, a quick pie chart that just shows, hey, I've got some routers that are actually unhealthy. I can tell you most of these come from, I had just had a family member move out of California. We were monitoring a bunch of her routers, and those are no longer online. So it makes sense to see those here. This chart has been hit or miss for some of our users. You can see for now, for me, it doesn't show anything. We're updating this today or tomorrow with a favorite router. So you'll be able to track, and I'll show you here in a second. If we take a look at router health, you're gonna see some bandwidth charts start to show. So this is gonna show if you have a favorite router, that'll show the one. So if you've got either a core router or a BGP edge that you wanna keep an eye on, that's gonna be the way to say, hey, that guy's a favorite, and his bandwidth will show here. And then obviously CPU, RAM, and disk. If I have any that are CPU and RAM, I wanna look at those. Disk, so a lot of people don't care so much, but it gives a good indicator of, again, the overall health of your network. So we talked about the router listing page, and this is the one that if you had thousands of routers, it was taking probably 20 or 30 seconds to load, depending on how fast your browser was. And it really depended on how fast your computer was on how long it would take to come out the dashboard. And so one of the things we did was took this back and we said, hey, we need to make this work for thousands of routers with all of these statistics included. So it was always fast before, but once we started adding statistics, it started to slow down with volume. So as you can see, I only have a couple of routers here, but if I had several thousand, it would still load in just about the same amount of time here, no more than 2 seconds to load this page. And so on this page, we can see a couple of different things. We've got whether the router is online, offline, or has permissions problems. Permissions problems might be anything like just our service sees that it's online, but we can't communicate with it, to, hey, we can communicate with it, but maybe we can't take backups or run the Fleet Commander bulk configuration tool. If we jump in here for a moment, let's take a look at the real-time view. And this tells me a little bit of info about this router, and I can start drawing real-time bandwidth. We can take a look at where that bandwidth is landing on which interfaces, download and upload, a little more health and info about the router. And then if it has Wi-Fi or LTE, you'll see that info show up down here, and just a quick view of being able to see what's connected to this router and how it's behaving. Let's see here. If we switch down to router health, this is another one that's relatively newly updated. You can see here we've got day, week, and month statistics. We'll actually have year statistics here. Once we get past a year, we only launched this feature at the beginning of the year, so we haven't been tracking yet for a year yet. But we can check out day, week, and month and get a sense of how much bandwidth is passing through this router in upload, and we can switch it to download. And then in the same way, we can see day, week, month for CPU usage. So if this is one of my core routers, BGP edge, etc., I can take a look and say, hey, CPU looks good, or hey, we're getting pretty close to needing to upgrade this guy to a bigger router. And then in addition, one of the more recent features down here at the bottom, this is a device historical. So this is showing all of the LAN devices attached to this router. And it's detecting all of the Wi-Fi devices. So what was happening was that customers were telling us, hey, you can see here, I've got 20 or 30 devices that are attached to the Wi-Fi. Which one was the one that was using bandwidth yesterday? And so rather than clicking through one by one and trying to find out which one it was, what we did was come up with a stacked bandwidth chart. So this is the stacked bandwidth we talked about during the earlier portion of the chat. And now I can jump in here and say, oh, okay, I see, hey, we've got a device now that's starting to consume, overall 30 megs of traffic here. And if I hover here, I can see, it shows me at different points of time, it's Mark's MacBook Pro 2020. And if we wanted to take a look back here in the past, I can see it's this pink one. It's the home theater device is consuming a whole bunch of bandwidth. And so same way, we can look at day, week, month. And a great thing is if a customer calls in Monday or Tuesday and says, hey, I noticed over the weekend, my internet was really slow. And you'll see that it's adding devices here. So when you click on week or month view, it'll take a couple seconds for us to detect each of the devices and draw them on the graph. But a customer calls in Monday, Tuesday and says, hey, it was bad over the weekend. You can easily come back here, look at the week view. And, for one of our users recently told us, hey, it was full on being used by a Roku and Xbox. And they were able to quickly see that, hey, the Roku the TV was off, but the Roku was still streaming and the Xbox was downloading updates. And by being able to see that visibility into the customer LAN can really be helpful in having a better support conversation with your users. Tags is a way to easily sort later on for other functionality within the dashboard when we want to do a mass firmware update, for example. If I've got all my customer routers tagged customer and then also tagged with a location, makes it super easy to update firmware later on or take backups or launch a fleet commander. Under security, the IP addresses listed here will allow you to connect to the remote access functionality of RemoteWinBox. As we talked about, or as I talked about, if I take a look here on the router listing, there is a URL. You'll see here vpn1.remotewinbox.com:57. It doesn't matter whether you can see it or not, because we can just click this button to copy it to the clipboard. And that will allow me to paste that into Winbox, and then I can access that location access that Winbox user interface from anywhere that is in my allowed list here on the IP addresses. So if you're not one of these IP addresses, you can go ahead and try and hit that port, but you're gonna not get allowed to talk to that device. And if you decide you wanted to revoke some access, the little red X here is for deleting functionality of reachability. So right now I could Winbox from here to any of my routers. And if I hit this X, which happens to be the IP address that I'm using right now, you'll see it's removed from the dashboard. And right away, if I go back to the router listing, the system already detected that the IP that this browser is using is no longer able to access the platform. And so if I'd like to be able to access it from here, let's say I'm at the hotel, coffee shop on the go, and I don't want to go through the typical VPN scenario. This is an easy way to get access. You're just clicking fix it here, and then I can, again, jump on the router list, grab my URL to connect to the Winbox, and I can access that router remotely. The other piece of security here is router security. So this is a per router scanning functionality. And right now today, we will scan for signatures of the Maris exploit. So you can see here that we can show a couple of icons. And so if we find and detect an admin with no password is allowed, or a couple of scripts or users, or IPsocks is enabled, if there are any indicators of Maris exploit, we will show those here on the dashboard. And one of our recent customers, as we were explaining this feature to them, they happen to have a router that was, I'm creating the signatures on this router. It's not actually exploited, but they had one that was actually exploited, and they were able to, get a hold of that customer and get that router secured for them. Backups is where disaster recovery and config management. So I'll take a look here, and you can create a new backup at any time by just clicking the button here. And then if I go to view backups, I can take a look at today's config versus a long time ago's config. And the use case here is that if a router changes configuration and it ends up being a problem, for one example, I had a customer say safe mode was running and then the router went offline and they lost all of that config. And so we were able to check on last week's config and jump in there and grab all the VLANs that had been created since now and then just copy and paste them into WinBox and resolve the outage very quickly. In addition, if you've got a router that gets hit by lightning or for whatever reason needs to be redeployed, you can easily come in, view your backups, and click view, and there you've got your entire export. Firmware Manager allows you to bulk upgrade firmware, and that allows you to, again, search by tag. We can just go with home here, check all, schedule an update, pick the firmware update for sometime in the maintenance window, 12 a.m. or 2 a.m., set our time zone, hit submit, and at that time, those routers will be updated. If I decide, hey, that's not a good time for the maintenance window, I need to cancel that because some other maintenance activity is going on that I didn't know about, I can just remove the updates this easily. Fleet Commander is our bulk configuration tool. This allows you to run any arbitrary command on any number of routers. And so I can select all the ones that are online here. And for example, I'll run a quick trace route here. And that allows me to run any arbitrary command. So this could be a configuration command, for example, to update DNS servers, or it can be a troubleshooting command where right now I'm running a trace route tool against all of these routers. And what will happen is that as it runs through each of them, I'll be able to see what the packet path was to get out to the internet. Should be done by now. I'm just going to refresh the page here, and you'll see that I've got results. And when it's done, it'll say done. So Login Manager is our radius-like functionality. All of the users that we add at the top. So if I wanted to add a user for my entire deployment here, I could say, new guy just got hired, set him a password, and there we go. New guy now has access to all of my routers. If I wanted to revoke his access, it's as easy as just deleting him. And now that new guy is no longer allowed to access any of my routers with WinBox. User Manager is our role-based permissions. So we've got customer service, dashboard admin, engineer, operations, and technician. You can have as many users on the platform as you'd like, however many make sense to access your company's routers. And it's as easy as clicking add user, filling in the form, and selecting which group they belong to. And then when you want to adjust a group, permissions. So for example, you may not want customer service able to access the Fleet Commander bulk configuration tool. We can go in here and you can see customer service has access to dashboard and firmware, but not some of the other pieces. So I think that was most. Let me take a look here at what our updates were. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat and let's take a look at those questions.
So Mark, if you're done with the presentation, we do have a couple of questions if you're ready.
I am.
All right, I got one for you. The CPU graphs, is that overall or is it per core?
So that's overall, yep. Yeah, so if you wanted per CPU, today you would have to log into WinBox to take a look at what that looked like as a per CPU. That's an interesting statement. I think we probably could get per CPU, and I'm going to take that as a note. One of the things that we love to do is take your feedback and continue improving the dashboard. One thing that a customer told us recently was that since he became a customer 3 months ago, the number of changes in the dashboard's just been incredible, and very happy with the service. So anything that you've got as a suggestion, we'd love to hear it.
All right, next question is, does your firmware manager work for Router OS 7? And does it update both packages and the boot firmware?
Yeah, so the firmware manager does indeed work for V7, and yes, it does, takes care of both. So what will happen is that at that time that we put for the maintenance window, the job fires off and says, hey, here's the routers that we need to update now, and it'll run through and start pinging those routers to do the update. And then 10 minutes later, after performing the system package update, it's going to go ahead and say, hey, now you need to do the system router board update, and then reboot one more time.
And actually funny, Steve Carter from chat just asked the same question. So there you go, Steve. Next question is, what are the options to migrate from Minim?
Oh, options to migrate from Minim. So we have I guess, if you're using some other platform, regardless of whether it's Minim or some other software, we have an onboarding tool that we can run, and we've got a CSV, just a spreadsheet that you fill out, and then once that's filled out, we run our tool against your deployment, and we can suck in hundreds or thousands of routers in just a couple of minutes.
All right. How long does it take for historical data to begin collecting?
Sure, yeah. So when you add a router to the platform, within 1 minute, we're going to detect whether that's online or offline and start doing a discovery. And then within 5 minutes, we'll start collecting the stats for the historical stats and real time.
All right. Next one up is, how far back are the router backups kept?
Oh, sure. So router backups will be taken. Obviously, you can click the button to take a backup anytime you want to, but as long as router backups are enabled, they'll take them once per night, sometime during the maintenance window, and then we will keep them for 30 days. And then after 30 days, we start to age out old backups except for the first day of the month. So we keep first day of the month for indefinitely, and then the most recent 30 days.
Right. I think that's all I see for the questions in chat here, unless someone else has any other questions. I don't think I missed any. Question: what's coming up on the roadmap?
So there's a lot of things on the roadmap. Maybe I'll throw a couple of things out that are kind of right on the horizon, and maybe one or two that are longer term. So one of the things we're working on right now is that if you want to add routers to the dashboard, you have to come in and create that router in our dashboard, and then copy and paste a unique configuration to each of your unique routers. We are right in prototype for having a default configuration, so a config template that you could put into your template, and that would allow you to get a truckload of 50, 100, however many routers that you'd like to pre-configure, and have our stuff pre-configured also. And so what's going to happen is that it's going to contact our Bootstrap server, and then it's going to send it to your deployment. So that's very close to being ready. And that's really helpful for, again, when you're configuring multiple MikroTiks simultaneously that are going to go into deployment at some later point in the future. So it could be that you deploy at MDUs, and you want to be able to load up 300 units and have them ready to just go out. Another one that's coming up soon is mapping software. So somewhere on the menu here, we'll have network map. And when you click that, it's going to dynamically go out, query your network for OSPF routers, and then build the network diagram of what are the current paths and alternate paths to get out to the internet that are currently active and available. Let's see. Besides that, there's continual improvements happening to the dashboard. As far as consistency goes, you may have noticed that the router listing looked a little different than the backups and the firmware and the Fleet Commander pages. We want to consolidate those down and really get to where they all look and feel the same, and that there's a lot more smoother transition going between them. And that's because we've, as I mentioned, we're listening to the feedback all the time. And so as customers ask us for things, we continue to add them to the dashboard. And so some pieces have been added over time. We need to now take some development time and kind of remake that dashboard be more consistent across all of the pages. I think that's probably what I'll share for today.
And you mentioned the OSPF mapper. I think you're also working still on a blog post about, building your own OSPF network. Is that coming out anytime soon?
Yeah. So two items that I'll be working on. One will be what we're doing in our lab for that OSPF mapper tool, and kind of like just a conversation about how we are building this thing and what we think it'll be useful for. And then I think I'll also be doing a blog post on maybe building the world's least expensive OSPF lab with physical hardware so that people can learn. And that's going to be a step-by-step process. So if you're not into dynamic routing protocols today, the intent there is to really get you right off your feet and into dynamic routing protocols with a very light amount of learning and just step-by-step approach. So both of those are coming in the next month.
All right, awesome. But I think that's it for the questions for now.
Well, awesome, everybody. I really appreciate your time joining us today. And thank you so much for participating in the webinar. And I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, have a good day, everyone.
All right, thanks, everybody.